This is Take Charge Your Health with Corinne Fernari, clinical nutritionist, clinician assistant, and Carol Peterson, pharmacist. Listen, learn, and I hope you enjoy the show. Bye!
Welcome back. This is Take Charge of Your Health with Corinne Fernari, clinical nutritionist and physician assistant, and my co-host, Carol Peterson, pharmacist. Every week, we present you with new and creative ways to help you make sense of health information and bring it home to you and your family. With years of clinical experience between us and research into traditional and cutting-edge technologies, we give you practical information to help you take charge of your health.
Welcome back. We're here. We're here again. I'm here with my co-host,
Carol Peterson.
There's a heavy
There's an echo here.
heavy echo. Let's see what we can do about that. Okay, so I have a little bit of. I wanted to start this show today. The echo's gone. Thank you. I wanted to start this show today with finishing up last week's show, and it's kind of fun in that last week's show was on histamine. And at the end of the show, I received this from WBAI, and I'm going to read it to you. It was on my text. You forgot to mention about citrus fruit. Citrus fruit is something that you should avoid while experiencing high histamine levels. Oh my goodness. So I want to just talk about citrus fruit for a couple minutes, and then we'll go to our subject of the day. I'll pass it to Carol. So citrus fruit is very interesting and also very important because of the fact that it has two effects. One, it's very high in vitamin C, and vitamin C is a natural antihistamine. But it's also a stimulator, a blocker of the DAO enzyme. So here you have something which, no, I'm sorry, I switched it. We're playing with the computer right now, and I got a little confused. Vitamin C is an antihistamine, but citrus fruit also stimulates the DAO enzyme. So you have a reaction in that you have a stimulation of histamine while you have a natural antihistamine. You have a double effect. And so that is the reason why they recommend that if you're really on a high histamine diet, to block histamine reactions, because you don't know how powerful the effects are, you avoid citrus fruit. And I want to say that's the problem when the students become the teacher. So, Carol, I'm going to pass it to you. Hello? Mother, my goodness. Carol?
Carol, you there?
I guess not.
I guess you just have to continue on.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
No problem at all. So our subject today is bleeding.
I
And
think,
what?
am I on?
Yes, let me just.
I just had to do a mute and put back on. It came on.
Oh, okay. I
I'm here.
my.
I can take that up.
Okay, just one
What,
second. I
where
want to
we're
just say two statistics, and then I'll pass it to you. And let's see. Here it is. That what we're talking about is abnormal bleeding, and this is a very important subject because in 2021, approximately 14.6% of women in the United States had hysterectomies directly related to the fact that they had abnormal bleeding. And hysterectomy rates increase significantly as we age. From 18 to 44, you have like an 8% rate. From 45 to 64, you have a 35% rate. And from 65 to 74, you have a 41.8% rate of hysterectomies. That's almost four out of every 10 women have a hysterectomy by the time they're 65 to 74 years old. That's a very important statistic. And so we wanted to discuss that with Carol and see what she's got to say about it. Carol, help
Oh,
us out on this one.
I have a lot to say about it. One more
Oh, what a surprise.
one more statistic for you: about 700,000 hysterectomies are performed every year in the U.S., and the vast majority of those hysterectomies are being done because of heavy bleeding. And it seems conventional medicine doesn't get a handle on heavy bleeding, yet it's actually quite easy to handle generally. I'll say generally. What happens is you have to look at the functioning of the menstrual cycle. Often we see charts depicting the menstrual cycle, but we don't see any progesterone in the first 2 weeks from the first day of bleeding until ovulation. The graph is flatlined there, and because of that, progesterone is thought to be very, very insignificant for looking at that part of the cycle. The vast majority of practitioners may use progesterone in the luteal phase, the second part. After an ovulation, you release a whole lot of progesterone normally. But these graphs that we've been taught with are a problem. We see that the amount of progesterone is really 1,000 times the amount of estradiol on those charts, and they have squished it so they can be on the same piece of paper. And in squishing, you don't see that the progesterone is really quite magnificent and high during the first part of the cycle. And here
it's even higher than the estrogen in the
yes,
first part of the cycle.
at all times, it's higher
At
than
all
estrogen.
times.
It's supposed to
Okay.
be. Supposed to be. During the first part of the cycle, once bleeding stops, estrogen stimulates the uterus, the endometrium and the uterus to start putting down a layer in anticipation of a fertilized egg. And then comes ovulation. And for the first week after ovulation, this is still happening, that this layer is being built up and made even more cushy for an egg to implant. However, if the progesterone is deficient from the first part of the cycle, this growth of the endometrium can be very, very heavy. You can get a very, very heavy layer started. And the other thing is you often can see things like polyps and fibroids are also happening from this part of the cycle where estrogen is stimulating, and progesterone, which actually has a balancing effect so you don't do the excessive buildup, is lacking. And why is it lacking? It's lacking because that progesterone that you see in the first part of the cycle, even though if you put it in proper units, it would be 1,000 times the amount that you see for the estradiol. With when that is not sufficient, it means that your adrenals are not putting out adequate progesterone. And for some reason, I guess in gynecology, we really don't address adrenal production of hormones very, very well until after menopause. So this can be a very severe problem in some people, and it's a hallmark of perimenopause. This is coming up very, very often in perimenopause, where women will have menstrual bleeding that is huge. They can't go anyplace. They're bleeding so heavily. Pads won't hold it, tampons won't hold it, and uh, most doctors, conventional doctors, are just letting you suffer until you beg for a hysterectomy because you are bleeding constantly. So the thing to do is to make sure there's enough progesterone in the follicular time of the cycle, the first days 1 through 15, first day being first day of bleeding. There's a secondary issue here too, because there are ways your body can be accumulating more and more estrogen activity that could be addressed at all. But the bottom line is you have to have some balance between progesterone and estrogen, particularly in the first 2 weeks of the cycle, or you get a massive growth of the endometrium, and then along comes an ovulation. Progesterone is at its peak level, middle of the second part of the cycle, and when it reaches this height of progesterone and there is no egg, progesterone kind of changes its activity. It becomes a secretory hormone. And it's this action of this very, very high progesterone on that endometrium that signals your body to release all that accumulated tissue. And therein lies the rub. So when you get to that last week of your menstrual cycle, if all during this time you've had excessive, relative to progesterone, excessive estrogen stimulation, you're building up bigger and bigger layers. And the truth of the
Which,
matter is, if you actually manage progesterone for these women, this can be eliminated in 1 or 2 cycles. You don't have to be
now,
suffering.
now
Corrine.
standard care, thank you. Now that's a good base. And standard care for this is very often birth control pills. Now, what are birth control pills? Birth control pills have no progesterone. They have progestins, which is a synthetic progesterone, which sits on the progesterone receptors without giving you progesterone effect and estrogen. So it acts to suppress the problem while aggravating the problem, making the problem worse by giving you more estrogens and not balancing the progesterones. So there you are, and you're caught in a circle that can be quite dangerous, can lead to the fact that you end up with a hysterectomy. You become one of those with the statistic of a hysterectomy due to excessive bleeding. And it's very sad. It's, well, I went to a doctor for another reason, and he said, well, what's the problem? It's just a uterus.
You know, the
That's,
uterus is a strange and wonderful part
well,
of
it's mine.
our body. I was at a meeting. It was this wonderful group called ISHWISH, the International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health. And one doctor I happened to be chatting with, he said, you know, we have just scratched the surface on what we know about the uterus. It does a lot of things. And he said, I would love to be that person who could conquer this great unknown, the uterus, which is interesting because we've been on Earth as human beings for a long time. You would think we would know something, um, but but
We've got a lot to learn.
I'd like to give an example because you brought up the birth control stuff. This was when I was working at the compounding pharmacy. We had a young woman. She's in her early 20s, which is pretty early for heavy bleeding. And she every month she would actually go for a blood transfusion. And okay, so we said we got to give you progesterone and knock down that bleeding. But this is the wisdom of the people in the emergency room. They would tell her after the blood transfusion, they'd give her birth control pills and tell her to take 3 or 4 at a time. What were they doing? Highly estrogenic without the protection of real progesterone, as you mentioned, Corrine. So guess what? They were prepping her for her next emergency room trip. We finally got her to stop bleeding on a daily dose. It was 1,700 milligrams of progesterone done in troches. So this dose was split up throughout the day.
1,700.
1,700, and
That's amazing.
I'd like to bring
That's
this
an
up.
amazing statistic.
Right, I'd like to bring this up because you have to work with people where they're
Where they're
at.
at.
Conventional medicine, the drug Prometrium got its drug approval for 200 milligrams of progesterone. This is oral progesterone to protect the uterus. So if a conventional doctor wanting to use only the FDA approved forms of progesterone would take this case in hand and say, well, I really can't give you more than 200 milligrams of progesterone because there's no evidence that it's useful at more than 200 milligrams, and I'm not comfortable with this. And so you never get that person to treat the problem because it's out of their area of what they know and what they don't know. One of the biggest travesties I see is that we are not using enough progesterone in therapies because of some of this political stuff going on, and you may need hundreds of milligrams of progesterone instead of the 200. Corinne,
I
have
ha-
you had experience with this?
Very much so.
So,
I've had a young woman at the onset of COVID came into me. She had been bleeding heavily for 10 weeks, terribly anemic, and the hospitals were not accepting anyone other than COVID. So the only way she could get in, they wanted her to go to the hospital, would be to, the only way she could get in would be to, as an emergency case. So she was on her way. She was young. She was in her late 30s. She was on her way to a hysterectomy. There was no doubt about it. She was severely anemic, and at the time the hospitals were hysterical. And so she came to me and she literally said, I don't know, if you can help me, but I need help. So I started her on progesterone. I started her on 800. And this was it didn't, and within 2 days, it didn't stop her bleeding, but her bleeding reduced to almost a normal period. Then I raised it to 1,000, and then she started just to spot. First time in 10 weeks because she was so severe. And then I raised her to 1,400, and her bleeding stopped. That took all of a week and a half.
yeah,
And
and
she
no more hysterectomy.
no more hysterectomy. She started feeling better. And she contacted her GYN, who said to lower it, the dose. And she lowered it and her bleeding came back. And so I raised it again. and her bleeding stopped. And I said, listen, give your body time. Let yourself build up. Let your red blood cells build. Take lots of B vitamins. Strengthen yourself. Take naps because you are severely anemic. They wanted to give her transfusions, but they weren't able to because she couldn't get into the hospital.
Yeah, iron, and those are not, they're so oxidation producing. I think they're quite dangerous. Another thing that conventional medicine has been doing is inserting a Mirena coil, which is a progestin. And so this has been approved for birth control, not for heavy bleeding, but doctors will say, okay, we'll give you this coil and it'll help manage the heavy bleeding. In some cases it does help, but also the side effect of the Mirena coil is bleeding, and so it's not a well thought
Side
out
effect of
solution.
coils can
So,
be
and it's
bleeding.
off label and somewhat dangerous, I believe. I wouldn't encourage anybody to do that. So, I'd like to introduce another kind. So, this heavy perimenopausal bleeding that is actually quite common can be managed. I'd like to talk about, let's say you are newly on progesterone. Your doctor's giving you progesterone with or without a little estrogen. You've had irregular or you're already postmenopausal, no cycles. So you start taking the progesterone, and some days go by, and all of a sudden you're bleeding. Well, this is normal, natural, predictable starting the progesterone. Remember I said it is a secretory hormone. And when
What does
enough,
secretory mean, Carol?
it means it will
It
it
what?
will it will
It
cause
will
that.
withdraw, cause a withdrawal,
No,
a
no, no.
release. It'll cause a
It
release.
causes a release of all that tissue. So as soon as your body's gotten enough progesterone to actually do this, and you have an endometrium that has built up tissue, it's going to go. And this is not, if you do not know this in advance, you're going to have to call your doctor and say, all of a sudden I'm bleeding. I don't know why I'm bleeding. And you have to go in. Once you go in, the doctor is required to work you up for potential cancer. Uh, Even though it is normal, natural, predictable, and a good thing when progesterone has gotten to a level where it sheds this tissue. Now, sometimes when you're shedding this, you can actually tell because the tissue will now come out somewhat brownish. It's been there a long
Because it's
time.
old, it's
It's
oxidized. It's like
right.
old blood.
It's old stuff, and you might have some
New blood is red.
right, right. So you might have some old clotting, and you might have a little bit of red too. So this is what that looks like, and it's predictable. Everybody who is starting on progesterone for hormone supplementation, who has not had a cycle where you would have had a huge amount of progesterone for a while, if you've had irregular cycles or no cycle for a while, there's a potential that when you start, you will bleed, and that's a wonderful thing. Whatever old tissue you have sitting around, it needs to be shed.
So there are symptoms of low progesterone that we all should know and understand. And I'm going to read some of them. You can add if you want, Carol. No ovulation, polycystic ovary syndrome, so that you're not ovulating.
So you don't
Po-
get the ovarian surge, lots and lots of progesterone.
Exactly. Uh, Postpartum, low symptoms, depression. Perimenopause, very common, low progesterone. And menopause, and some of the symptoms are depression, anxiety, insomnia. Now, optimal progesterone is really quite lovely. Wait till you hear this. And I'll give you a list. It enhances sleep, it decreases insomnia, It reduces anxiety and it reduces depression. It reduces estrogen dominance, some of that swelling. It reduces hot flashes, although estrogens help very much,
No.
significantly in hot flashes. Night
I'll
sweats,
argue that point.
osteoporosis risk, it reduces osteoporosis risk, and it reduces, just like Carol was saying, endometrial risk. And so that's like, that's pretty wonderful stuff. Now, Carol, I want to ask you, I was on the internet today, or yes, this week, and they said that 10 nanogram per milliliter is the optimal dose of progesterone. Now, I say that it's optimal according to what you need. So it's very individual. What do you say?
Okay, that particular number is very iffy because that's a serum number.
Yes.
That was a test on the serum. So it will differ very much by the length of time from your last dose of progesterone and when you took your blood sample. So the farther away, the lower it's going to go. Doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean that you didn't benefit for that. It can be deceiving. For example, I remember in the early days of using bioidentical hormones, um, somebody would use some progesterone, maybe some estrogen, and they would go and get a blood draw the following day, and
Mm-hmm.
there would still be low estrogen and low progesterone. It goes up very quickly in the serum and very
Yeah.
quickly down. So the
It's
doctor would say,
metabolized in 13 hours.
yes. So the
So
doctor would
it's
say,
gone.
see, I told you that doesn't work.
Doesn't work
There's no serum level, which is craziness, just plain craziness
because they
going on.
don't understand how your natural hormones work either. Your natural hormones are metabolized in 13 hours. This is an exact analog of your natural hormones. Therefore, it's metabolized in 13 hours. I remember when the women's study, the HERS study, was on, and they interviewed a doctor from Harvard, and he said that natural hormones weren't good because you can't control them. But
Well, that's partially true.
that is true. That is true, but it's a misunderstanding. I mean, your relationship to hormones when you're lying on the beach in the Caribbean is one, and with you're with your mate and having this wonderful time is one thing, and your relationship to hormones if you're in an ICU because your mother's in the hospital is a totally other thing, and your body will feel the difference. Your body needs to crank up to be able to deal with the stress. How does it do that, Carol? Can you explain some of that?
How it cranks up to deal with the stress?
Yes, because
Oh,
what
well,
happens is
that's why when you
the
have to call
progest
on your adrenals, and now you do have adrenal progesterone to
yes,
call on
and it's
to
all used
to
up.
call. It's all used up. I saw a study like post-COVID stuff. Progesterone's entirely depleted. So somebody was asking, well, how much progesterone to restore it? I said they didn't study that. They just said maybe we should use progesterone for long COVID. But I don't want to drift away too far from the bleeding, and I wonder if we should give out the phone number for people to
Oh,
call in.
yes, I would love it. And also, we have another way to get a hold of us. Well, first of all, let me give the number 212 209 2877. That's 212 209 2877. And you can also on your internet, we're now, this is new, last 2 weeks, we're so excited by this. We're live on YouTube. So you can type in questions, and we're Take Charge of Your Health Radio. If you type that in, you'll come right to this live showing, and you can type in questions through the internet, and or you can give us a call at 212 209 2877. and we look forward to hearing from you. This is a good conversation. It would be very, uh, you can join it. Thank you. Carol?
Okay, so I would like to cover the situation that happens. Let's say you found yourself a wonderful doctor. They've given you some progesterone and estradiol. You're postmenopausal.
Natural
Maybe you have,
progesterone.
yeah, maybe you have a little bit of testosterone in there too, and you're going along just fine. And say now you're 70 years old and everything is pretty darn good, and all of a sudden you start spotting. This is another situation. Do you need to run over to your doctor to make sure you don't have cancer? Well, I would say hold the boat for a little while. You are you are on the hormones, and that can be variable. You brought up a very good case where if you have more stress, you're going to be blowing through your progesterone, which is balancing that estrogen. So when this happens, I always look for what happened in the previous month or two. Was there exceptional stress? Was there a vacation? Something that would call upon your adrenal progesterone to be used up and the supplement used up. During this time where you have a little bit of lopsidedness, now you become estrogen dominant. Lickety split, your body starts preparing for an egg again and starts building up tissue. So by the time that you call and say, I'm spotting what's happened, you've corrected it. You've gone far enough from the stress situation where progesterone is now again able to balance the estrogen and prevent that buildup, but there is some. And you're going to shed it. And this should be a little bit of spotting. And if you have this happening, you've already corrected. You don't have to do anything. Or if this becomes a more frequent thing, you need to adjust your dose. You're too estrogen dominant, so you have this time that you are building up tissue that the progesterone will get rid of, and then you're going to have these abnormal spottings and nobody will know when. So to correct that, you can either raise progesterone or lower estrogen or a combination, however you need to do. This is also not unusual after you've been taking bioidentical hormones for a while. Your body changes and your contribution changes to the picture. So when you use bioidentical hormones, you are additive to your own hormones. It's the same molecule. And so if for some reason your own hormones are starting to deplete in this story, it's time to readjust the dosing.
Now, people come in regularly, and I mean, every 6 months they want a blood test to make sure their hormones are right. But in actuality, that degree is not necessary. What happens is I ask them, well, how are you feeling? Oh, I'm feeling great. It's just as good as when I started. Well, that's all we need right there.
Uh-huh.
The majority blood tests often don't tell the whole story. They don't give you the true picture or an adequate picture. My guidance comes through how people feel, how they feel in their body, how they're sleeping. Are they depressed? Do they have a brain fog? That's an important piece there, is brain fog. And when you're estrogen dominant, when your hormones are out, one of the first signs and symptoms is brain fog. And so, looking at yourself, looking at how you feel, is actually more, tells me more than very often than blood tests.
Absolutely. I really get a kick out of it, and you'll find lots of so-called support groups on Facebook pages and whatever.
Oh,
And women will write in and say,
they've all got
"Oh,
their
my
numbers.
my estradiol was 50, and now I'm taking 2 milligrams of estradiol, and it went down." And there's this tendency for somebody to have a test, and if you had your test and it was 50, well, that's your number until the next time you do another test and you get assigned a new number based upon the test. And this does not work very well at all. And during perimenopause, one of the things that happens is your hormones, especially estrogens, are very, very volatile, going up and down, sometimes even a little bit erratically. So the chance that you picked a time and got a number that really reflected what was going on in your body is not possible. So you are not your number. You are you. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, you are how you feel,
Uh-huh.
and that is important. The only time that I've really followed a number is when I get an abnormally, severely high reading, and
Yeah,
then I would follow the blood test.
I
I
really
have
had
a
recently somebody I was um, having trouble getting the bleeding stopped, but this time she did have a blood test, and her estradiol was 900,
oh yes,
and she
you're not going
had
to be able to stop that.
we have to do well, we went up pretty high, but it wasn't working yet, so she was constantly shedding. She went and had an ultrasound, and a transvaginal ultrasound can be a good tool to see if that lining is built up excessively or not,
Hmm.
because it can be quite quiet. You can have nothing happening, and quietly over the years, you're building up a layer that's just sitting
With a
there.
very, very high hormonal level,
Right.
extremely high hormonal level. I had one case, this is a funny story. I had a woman who came in, and she was an executive, very strident and strong. And I said, uh, and I did a blood test on her. And she said she was getting her hormones diagnosed from France. So I saw a 400 level of estrogen. I said, no, we've got to lower that. That's not good. Show this blood test to your doctor in France. So she faxed it over to him. This was at the time of fax, before people were emailing a lot. And he said, oh, I don't believe in blood tests. Those Americans, those Americans. And I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. We've got to lower that. And this is not healthy for you. And, um, and I said, do you ask him if he believes in breast cancer? And at
Well,
that point, she chose to be guided by me, and we brought it down. But it was very hard on her because she was used to such a high level of hormone. That became her baseline,
her normal.
her normal, and
I,
we
I, I love
slowly lowered
this.
it.
I love this saying from Dr. Ray Peat. He said, estrogen, this is supplemental estrogen, is as addictive as cocaine,
Mm,
but cocaine is easier for your body to
to withdraw.
metabolize.
Oh,
Because
wow. And withdraw from. So the number to call is 212 209 2877. 212 209 2877. And Take Charge of Your Health Radio. And we would love to hear from you. This is an important issue. It's really not addressed very often. Whenever you
no,
hear talks or see papers written on menopause or postmenopause or female hormones, they never discuss this. But yet, 46% of women, by the time they're 65 to 75, have had a hysterectomy. That is a pretty sad statistic. And a large portion of that is directly due to excessive bleeding. We have a caller. So,
Yeah,
hi. Hi, you're live. Your name, please?
Yeah, my name is Will.
Hi,
hi,
Will.
Will.
How are you?
Everything is okay. It's been a while since I had spoken to the both of y'all and Reggie. That's my man right there, the music guy and everything else.
Ours too.
Guy
Yeah.
who had a foot problem. Um, and Corrine wanted me to keep her posted on what was going on. So anyway, the final analysis was acute osteomyelitis. And the doctor is adamant on cutting my foot off, but it's not. Another doctor said I can get outpatient antibiotics, and that would help. So I'm sorry to get off track
Osteomyelitis?
from your topic, but I just wanted to call in. I just got out the hospital and been in there
Oh,
for 30 days, and that's what it is.
well, thank you for calling back. That's
Yeah.
an infection in the bone. They're very difficult to block. They have to be watched very carefully by your practitioner. It has to be watched continuously. But Carol and I were just at a lecture by Dr. Frank Schallenberger. And Dr. Schallenberger said, now I've been using ozone forever, for over 20 years, but Dr. Schallenberger said something very wonderful. He said, ozone, ozone works, it kills virus, it kills bacteria instantly. And it works not to override whatever therapy you're on, but to support it because it reduces the amount of work that the therapy that you're on has to do. So if possible, I would one work with my doctor and follow whatever they say in relationship to antibiotic therapies. Do not get off of antibiotics. And I would also do ozone therapy. I had a case of an osteomyelitis in a jaw where they had cut away her jaw and they couldn't put anything in there because there was still infection. And she came to me and I literally worked with her daily with IV hydrogen peroxide, ozone, and IV vitamin C. And they had been attempting to graft bone in there. And after working with me for 2 months, she went for another surgery and it held for the first time in years. So
Well,
stick with your doctor, continue your antibiotics, you need them. But see
I'd,
if
li-
you
I-
can add an alternative therapy with it. Carol?
I'd like to interject something, and it's relatively old. There was a doctor in Denmark called Jens Mueller,
Oh,
and he's
yes.
written some books about this, and his work is available through the Broda Barnes group. They might still be selling his material if you're interested. But he used high doses
It's
of testosterone,
testosterone.
and he saved people from losing their legs to infections like gangrene, the diabetic people who were about to lose their feet and their toes. The high doses, and they're very high doses, and it was injected to to boost this up, and he saved a lot of limbs, and his work is available still. I think you can find it at Broda Barnes Foundation.
Muller.
Yeah,
Mueller.
Mueller. And testosterone is really responsible for building up your own immune system, so you have the ability to fight infection. So it makes good sense. It was also very good for cardiovascular problems. And he would give men and women the same dose, and the women would complain because they'd lose some hair from the extra testosterone. Their voices would go low. and they would complain to Dr. Mueller. He would say, "Would you rather be dead?" And, so he was quite adamant in being very generous with testosterone. I think a little bit much, but he had results.
So that would be something that you might be able to ask, because the statistics, you can look it up, but that might be something you can ask your practitioner about, or look it up for him, and then him or her, and then bring them the research or the article, and then ask them to assist you in that way. So thank you so much. Thank you for calling us.
Thank you.
Okay.
I
The
have,
number to
I ha-
call, 212-209-2877, 212-209-2877. Yes?
I have another situation I want to discuss with this bleeding issue. Um, and this is your perimenopausal generally, and all of a sudden your cycles that have been dead on every 28 days, every 30
Mm-hmm.
days, whatever. Now you're experiencing shortened cycles or lengthened cycles. And both of these occurrences happen when progesterone is not adequate enough. The shortened cycles, you may get an ovulation, you may not, but you kind of sputter on the progesterone activity. And then the lengthened one, it's taking that long and probably requiring adrenal progesterone to help for you to get the bleeding started. So this is not uncommon. This is something that can be solved with using extra progesterone, and this would be progesterone needed only in the luteal phase now, from ovulation to bleeding. And if you add extra progesterone, you can uh, recreate your normal and natural cycle for a while.
Now, sometimes what we find is that practitioners are really afraid, literally afraid, to give more than 200 milligrams. Um, and you, knowing your body and feeling your body, understand that you need more, your body needs more, you're not getting the response you should. Now, fortunately, with that said, um, there are ways through the internet to get much higher doses of hormones, and you could create a balance with what you're being given and what your body needs. So once you get stabilized with the amount you need, it would be maybe beneficial to see if your practitioner is open to it being that you're stabilized and you weren't being stabilized with the dose they were giving you. But it is available. It's available on my website. It's available on Carol's website. You can get the amount of progesterone you need on both of our websites. Carol, I was on the internet, and there is a hormone expert, I think much of his information is quite accurate, but he's made this statement. Tell me what you think about it.
Okay.
Progesterone transdermal cream has no or very slight impact for sleep.
That's very strange because my clients do very well with transdermal
That
progesterone.
that's what
But
I was thinking.
I would be willing to bet it's dose related. I would be
So he's
willing
giving too low.
I would be willing to bet he gave somebody 20 milligrams and it didn't work, and that's that. When for sleep, you really want to have 300 milligrams to restore sleep. I find this a real problem because the Endocrine Society, Menopause Society, American Academy of Obstetrics and Gynecology, they have these position papers that you need 200 milligrams of oral progesterone or vaginal to protect the endometrium, and you need 200 milligrams, and that's that. We're having a lot of trouble with it. When you go to their paper, they compare it to an 80 milligram cream. And I said, well, this isn't very fair. Not only are they dissing topicals, their evidence is a lot less than the evidence for
Exactly.
the other two dosage forms. It's incredible. I believe there's like a progesterone conspiracy afoot because as you read out all the good things, what what things are we actually using pharmaceuticals for that really reflect a basic hormone deficiency, and you can make some corrections and have a much more happy quality of life, and potentially even longevity if your body is working a little bit better.
If progesterone is there on board correctly, you don't need sleeping pills. If it's on board, you don't need many
Benzos.
what anti
Benzos.
benzodiazepines. Both sleeping pills and benzodiazepines are addictive. You don't need the pills to make your brain and your brain fog. The Ativan, or not Ativan. I'm going
Ativan
blank.
was a benzo.
Ad, what? Yes,
Yeah, I
that
don't know
makes
where
you
you're going with
more
that.
alert and
Oh, like Ritalin for
Ritalin,
AD.
Ritalin
There's a thing afoot here too. It's women are getting diagnosed as
with,
adults with ADD.
and
And
so they're getting exactly.
they need
That's a
progesterone. Oh my God.
My
It,
whole life I've had ADD
yeah,
and
I'm finally
Adderall.
diagnosed. Oh yeah,
And now I've
Adderall and Ritalin.
finally been diagnosed. And what happens is that all of those pills will be hopefully unnecessary once hormones are balanced. And that's pretty exciting to think about that. Think of what, first of all, the money you're saving, the reduction that you're having in toxic pharmaceuticals that are going into your body. Everything we said was addictive. And here we're eliminating all of that. And it's quite interesting to see. Oh, guess what, Carol?
We have another caller, or it's almost
No,
time.
unfortunately, it's time. We've got
Two minutes.
2 more minutes. So, Carol, can we have your website?
Okay, my website is the Wellness by Design Project.com, and I have a YouTube channel, the same name. And Corinna and I have set up a Facebook page, Take Charge of Your Health with Corrine and Carol. So please visit us there too. You can PM your questions to us. Aren't we getting cool?
I know.
Oh, this is
And at this age, also, really cool. It must be the hormones.
right. Oh, and the radio program is archived at WBAI.org, but we also put it on Spotify, so you can find us there too.
Wow.
And the radio program on both of our websites. And Corinne, your website, please.
It is Corrine Health, CORINNE health.com. And on mine and on Carol's website, we have a list of articles we've both written. You will, if you go onto our websites, Plan to Spend Time, you will get lost in all the information. And it's very understandable. We take medical theory and we break it down so you are able to understand it and use it in your home, in your family, in yourself, in your community. So we will be back next week. Reggie, thank you so much for helping us. And now we've got someone else on board helping us. Jeremy, thank you so much. You're making all this possible. He's the one that got us on Spotify and all of these others. And we'll be back next week. Thanks, Carol. Always,
Thank
when
you,
we're
Corinne.
together, I learn.
Me too, and there's a lot to learn.
There's a lot
And
to learn.
okay.
We'll be back
Bye,
next week.
everybody.
Bye.